FPUC retro. It's heating up as one leading Democrat in the Senate says FPUC needs to go higher. It's Ron Wyden. He says it needs to be $600 a week. Number one. Number two, it can't expire. It should be tied to economic conditions. Number three, it shouldn't end in August. Number four, the number should be big and bold. But will number five be the retroactiveness of it? Viewers of this channel have been on social media pushing Wyden and others to ensure that FPUC retro is paid on the third stimulus package. Enjoy this throwback video in which I explain how to get FPUC retro under second stimulus and first stimulus. What is FPUC retro? What is PUA? What's escalated benefits? And what's certifying for benefits on a weekly basis? Enjoy this throwback video explaining unemployment. An agreement on $600 a week is likely close in a second stimulus package. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is LA Lake with a second stimulus check update. This is Afternoons LA Late. I hope you're good and safe. Thank you for joining me. Our Afternoons LA Late starts every day at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time with the check. Then we go to hazard pay at 4 p.m. That's a topic that people just don't want to talk about, except we cover it every single day. FPUC at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time. And finally, rent assistance at 5. Big developments on FPUC, that's $600 per week overnight and minutes ago, and I have them right in front of me. I had warned you last week that broadcast news just wants to hit FPUC stories morning, noon, and night. And I want to explain to you where we are right now and what the backstory of it is, because the backstory is really quite interesting. FPUC is likely agreed upon by both sides of the negotiations, despite the crazy, scandalous one-upmanship reporting in broadcast news. We know that because last week the president said he agreed to $600 a week. Steve Mnuchin and Mitch and Mark Meadows were both dispatched by the president to inform the other side they agreed to $600 a week. The only difference was they agreed to it for 1 week and that they wanted to, tinker with it. As you know, the Democrats proposed $600 a week all the way to January, not for just 1 week. So then on Mornings LA Late and last night, I detailed to you a really shocking development, and that came from Nancy Pelosi, who is the chairman, who is the Speaker of the House. She is one of the Democratic negotiators, but is really the chief negotiator of the room. She came out and told news that I'm not moving on $600 a week. I'm never moving on $600 a week. I'm willing to walk on $600 a week. No American supports $200 a week. Everything she said so far is totally correct. And then she said this. She said, you know what? I'll move on $600 a week if the unemployment number drops, or when the unemployment number drops. That then sort of signaled where the negotiations have now landed. Steve Mnuchin's claim as Treasury Secretary to Donald Trump, being the lead negotiator for the Republicans in the room before Mark Meadows, who is the chief of staff to the president, is that we don't need $600 a week because there's so many damn great jobs out there and everyone has these jobs and no one's going back to the jobs and the employment numbers are so wonderful. No one's buying that, and really, really no one is buying that. Republicans are not buying it. Democrats are not buying it. And what happened was the Republicans came in a little too aggressively. They came in at $200 a week, which I had pre-warned before they introduced the bill that was going to be a backlash number, that if they came in at $500 or $450, that, maybe they would get a lot of broad support. The end result was no one liked $200. Mark Meadows really made I'm going to say it, an ass of himself, because on Sunday morning he appeared on broadcast news and said, I'm urging all Americans to call up their senators and urge them to demand Nancy Pelosi to give you $200 a week. Why are you saying that, Mark? Because the president only 24 hours earlier said, I would agree to $600 a week. It's just really crazy. Lindsey Graham, who sometimes doesn't see eye to eye with the president, introduced a bill yesterday that said, okay, I'm going to give full unemployment benefits, contrary to Mitch McConnell, who wants to give, watered down benefits, or Steve Mnuchin, who wants to give you 70% unemployment benefits. So Republicans aren't supporting the position of the Republican bill. The numbers across the country are really staggering. When polled in swing states support $600, don't support $200. When polled in Republican strongholds, no one supports $200, they support $600. When polled in states that voted for Trump and are likely to revote for Trump again in the fall election, they support $600. They don't support $200. So it's really quite strange what's going on. And now what's happened is really the Democrats have not moved. This is hence the backstory. I've been reporting since Friday that a lot of reports now confirm that there is agreement on the $600 a week, that there is an agreement on $600 a week. It's the tinkering of where the $600 a week trails off in the weeks or months to come. The other reports that you see broadcast news, and I'll get to them in a second, that there's no agreement on $600. There's absolutely, non-agreement. They're just not true. And let me explain to you now the wonderful backstory. Everyone loves a backstory. It's like bad Real Housewives soap opera. It's like Nene and Sheree arguing over who had chicken or fish for lunch last night. What the broadcast news reporters are trying to do with very, very bad, unskilled, unsophisticated, uninformed reporters is sit back and say, oh, I got a story for that stimulus thing. It's about unemployment. And so what they're doing now is they're literally going out and interviewing people whose unemployment benefits have been cut off. They don't have the $600 a week, and they're doing, personal pieces. I had my $600 a week. It's been cut off. I can't make my rent. Okay, there's that type of story. But then they're doing another type of story, which is to say, we're reporting exclusively that there's no agreement on the 600, and that they're now the Republicans are proposing 250 or 350 or 325, and then someone down the street says, "I heard it's 375." They're offering. It's just like ridiculous. It's like, come off of it. So I want you to put on your Princess Leia earmuffs and sort of ignore the chatter. It's like a big hot air balloon over Albuquerque, just not with a lot of colors. And so I want you to understand that it's just not happening. Nancy Pelosi has made very clear one thing. It's going to be $600 a week. She's not moving on $600 a week. It's just not moving. Economists now, new reports issued minutes ago, says no one sees it coming as $200 a week. Howard Schultz, who's former Starbucks CEO and of course announced his run for presidency, but backed out shortly thereafter, said there has to be lots of stimulus, not just a little bit of coffee latte stimulus. You need a grand frappuccino. I forgot the venti. What's the largest Starbucks size? You need the massive size grand venti stimulus. You can't have the mochaccino Chinese stimulus because it's not going to work. That's not the quote, but I'm making it more entertaining. So many of these businesses could have become the next Starbucks. It's really important to consider that. He's basically saying a lot of businesses and employees need the stimulus right now because they could be the future big business. But Schultz was asked, what would Starbucks have been like if they had just started out, that this was 1987 and the pandemic hit? He said Starbucks may not have survived. He says we were a very similar small business to many of the small businesses are today in 1987. Had the pandemic hit in 1987 as it's hitting today, like many of the small businesses, we may not have survived. Could Starbucks have survived in the situation in 1987? The answer is probably not, unless there was some type of mechanism for the federal government to step in and save those businesses and their employees. Nothing has ever been like this. The businesses do not have the cash to retain their people. They don't have the cash to pay employees. I hope Steve Mnuchin is listening. If he's not, call him up and say, Steve, listen to LLA. Howard Schultz is saying, these small businesses don't have cash to pay employees. So they're laying them off. It's not like the employees are staying home. They don't have cash. They don't have the cash to buy inventory. They don't have the cash to pay rent. These are his quotes, not my words. They're desperate right now, and a week is like a year to them. Really overwhelming. The situation is so dire, and every day goes by in which Speaker Pelosi and Leader McConnell and members of Congress are not acting and not walking in the shoes of the business people who deserve an opportunity, a lifeline. It's just a terrible situation for them in the country. What's going on, if you don't know, and I understand that this is a video about employees and their benefits, but the problem is that you have a congressional leadership and you have Steve Mnuchin and Mark Meadows thinking that businesses are all great and dandy and that they are employing people, that they're jobs for people. We don't need to worry about unemployment benefits. We don't need to worry about FPUC, that everyone has a job and that everything is back to normal. It's just hogwash. It's just a bunch of crapola crayons on parchment paper. It's just not happening. And so for people to sit back like Mitch McConnell several weeks ago and said, I don't need to give stimulus to employees. They're just staying home. There's jobs for them. They're not coming to work. It's just not true. And while we understand that there might be a political motive to say these certain things, ultimately, it's political suicide because there's a financial cliff. America's going over the financial cliff. The economic crisis is going to hit, and people need the stimulus. Well, here's the great news. After you hearing all that dire, horrible repertoire, the great news is you're going to get the $600 a week. Nancy is not moving on $600 a week. The Republicans are moving on $600 a week. The president last Friday said he'll agree to $600 a week. On Monday, Steve Mnuchin and Mark Meadows approached Nancy with an offer of $600 a week. They even confirmed it publicly on the record. They just said, we want to do $600 a week for 1 week. Yeah, for 1 week, that's not going to cut it. People are asking me a couple questions about FPUC, so let me answer them right now. First, retroactive benefits. Will I get retroactive benefits? Likely. That with those broadcast news reporters that don't do much of anything, you think they could ask a simple question like that? No. So when they have Nancy on TV and on the set with the beautiful graphics behind her that cost $500,000, they can't ask her a $10 question. Nancy, under your proposal, will you pay retroactive benefits of FPUC? No, they don't ask her that. When they have Steve Mnuchin on set, do they ask him that question? No. So you're asking me what's going on? I think it's highly likely. I just don't. The story is so front and center that people are losing their benefits. They're not getting their weekly benefits. And to say that you're going to just never have 1, 2, 3 weeks of FPUC because the federal government couldn't get their act together, I just don't see it happen. I think you're going to get it. That's really, really great news. The other great news is the delivery of the $600. I haven't said this for a while, so let me make this very clear to you. The reason why $600 is a really good number for you is not just the amount of the money, but the fast nature of the delivery of the funds. Most state unemployment computer systems still have in their databases the ability to put that line item back in that says $600 paid to John Smith for the week starting August 1st. They have that computer's ability to put that number in. And so if the bill gets passed tomorrow and becomes law on Friday, then they can shoot out that $600 to you very, very, very fast. That's what's really great news. What's not great news is the opposite. Yeah, I got to tell you the opposite. The opposite is if the number was not $600, it's $450 or $500. There's a lot of indication that the states don't have the ability to just simply go in and have a computer programmer reprogram the processes and change the number from 600 to 450. And we know that. I mean, they've told that to Mnuchin. I told that to you, and you've told that to me. If you're new to this channel, when we first started out, we had people who had not gotten FPUC benefits for months because state database computers took time to ramp up. Bottom line, the great news is that if it's $600 a week, which is likely going to be, they can shoot out that money and send it to you really fast. So it's, the Hot Mess Express has not delivered Christmas presents yet, but a lot of stuff could happen very quickly in this second stimulus package. You could get the stimulus check. 7 days after the bill is passed electronically. You can get your FPUC, your $60 a week, which if it's 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks that are lapsed, you can get them retroactively, potentially, within just a few days if you're set up for electronic deposit in your state, if the bill becomes law. So a lot of things could land in your account very, very quickly. Ultimately, my job is to inform you, keep you motivated, keep you inspired, keep you educated, because these things are going to happen very, very quickly. I mean, sometimes when I sit down and record, I'm like, I hope something doesn't happen in the next 15 minutes, because they're going to say, LLA, they've passed the law, your video's outdated, it's already okay. I hope that happens. I hope I sit down, I start recording, and the bill becomes a law, and I recorded something 2 hours early, I'm just sort of screwed over, because ultimately it's what you needed, and it's what you had hoped for, and we got through it together. Coming up next, rent assistance, and tonight is evenings LLate, our 1 hour programming block in which we start with the check at 6:45 Pacific Standard Time, and then we go to EIDL at 7:15 Pacific Standard Time. As always, stay motivated, stay inspired, stay focused, and thank you for tuning in. Stay with LA for more.